Happy New Year. Hello and welcome to our first show of the year. And let's ring in the new year by taking you through the top international stories of 2021. If you thought 2020 was tough, then 2021 was replete with high-impact headlines. From the fall of Kabul to the Capitol Hill breach. And then came the worst COVID wave, which led to manufacturing and production of vaccines in record time. In all, it was an unprecedented year. So here we have an action-packed half hour for an action-packed year. On January 6th, as Congress convened to certify Joe Biden's electoral victory, hundreds of pro-Trump protesters violently breached the US Capitol building, making it as far as the Senate chamber, killing one Capitol police officer and injuring more than 140 others. The insurrectionists from Save America rally caused roughly $1.5 million in damages.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country.
On January 13th, with 1 week remaining in his term, Trump was impeached for an unprecedented second time for incitement of insurrection. More than 700 people involved in the riots have been charged with various crimes so far. The inauguration of President Joe Biden on January 20th marked a transition in executive branch rhetoric from America First to America is Back.
President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Will, to the best of my ability.
This particular inauguration was historic because Kamala Harris became the first woman and first person of African American and South Asian descent to serve in the role of Vice President of the United States of America. Another important moment was when poet and activist Amanda Gorman read her poem, The Hill We Climb, at the inauguration, making her the youngest poet to read at a presidential inauguration in United States history.
Always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
The other major headline, which continues to be a developing story, was the arrest of top Putin critic Alexei Navalny. On January 17th, Navalny returned to Russia and was detained on accusations of violating parole conditions imposed as a result of his 2014 conviction because he had failed to report to Russia's Federal Prison Service twice per month during his illness, according to Russian authorities. Although his illness was due to poisoning with a Novichok nerve agent, which investigations revealed that Putin administration was responsible for. On 2nd February, his suspended sentence was replaced with a prison sentence, meaning he will spend over 2.5 years in a corrective labor colony in Vladimir Oblast. A stunning military coup in February of 2021 kicked off a year of unprecedented change in Myanmar after a decade of civilian rule. Myanmar's military orchestrated a coup, arresting civilian government leaders after Aung San Suu Kyi's NDP won a landslide victory in elections. The takeover abruptly halted the country's long-awaited transition to democracy, led by the Nobel Peace Laureate. 10 months later, the former state leader was sentenced to 4 years in prison for incitement, just the first of many charges she faces from behind bars. An untoward incident in March led to one of the biggest disruptions in supply chains the world over. Ever Given, a massive cargo ship carrying more than 18,000 containers of consumer goods, ran aground in the Suez Canal on March 23rd. For 6 days, the vessel blocked the passage of more than 400 other ships, stalling an already tenuous global supply chain, the ripple effect of which was 60-day shipping delays for roughly $60 billion worth of products.
it's important to keep the Suez Canal trade impacts in perspective. The estimate generated by other folks has been about $10 billion per day. That's about 20% of global daily trade. However, that's not lost completely.
The ship was seized by the Suez Canal Authority and held for more than 100 days till a settlement between Ever Given's owners, insurers, and Egyptian authorities was reached at $550 million. First half of 2021 was also the worst time across the world when it came to the COVID-19 pandemic. Countries were going through the second or third wave of COVID-19 and suffered major loss of life, with the entire medical system crumbling under pressure. Globally, according to WHO, as of 28th December 2021, there have been over 28 crore confirmed cases of COVID-19, including over 54 lakh deaths.
WHO issued emergency use listing for a ninth vaccine produced by the Serum Institute of India under license from Novavax. This new vaccine is part of the COVAX portfolio, and we hope that it will play an important role in achieving our global vaccination targets.
As of 27th December 2021, a total of over 9 billion vaccine doses have been administered. 2021 was also a year of solutions, with COVID vaccines tested and produced in record time. Countries like the US, the United Kingdom, China, Russia, Germany, Canada, India taking the lead in vaccine manufacturing. In April, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, who served as consort to his wife, Queen Elizabeth II, for more than 60 years, died. He was 99. In a statement released by Buckingham Palace, officials said the Duke had died peacefully at Windsor Castle. He was the longest-serving consort in history and one of the last surviving people in Britain to have served in the Second World War at Cape Matapan. The month of May saw a rise in tensions between Israel and Palestine over evictions of Palestinian residents from two neighborhoods of East Jerusalem, Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan, to make way for Jewish settlers. It all came to a head when on the last Friday of the holy month of Ramzan, more than 150 people were injured after Israeli forces broke up a massive gathering of Palestinian worshippers who had gathered to pray at Al-Aqsa Mosque, revered as Islam's third holiest site. Police fired bullets inside the compound, while Palestinians sheltering inside threw stones and rocks. Israel's actions were condemned the world over, with the United Nations Security Council convening a meeting to discuss the situation. In the increasingly infamous surveillance software industry, the Israeli firm NSO Group emerged in 2021 as the undisputed poster child of digital spyware landing in the wrong hands. The world woke up on July 19th to a shocking scandal involving the Israeli firm NSO's spyware called Pegasus. According to the findings, the surveillance list contained 50,000 telephone numbers of potential targets via Pegasus between 2016 and June of 2021. The list contained names of 189 journalists, 85 human rights activists, and over 600 politicians and government officials. Billionaire Richard Branson became the first person to blast off in his own spaceship, beating Bezos by 9 days. This private industry space race of the 21st century involves sending rockets to the ionosphere, orbital launch rockets, and suborbital tourist space flights.
We're here to make space more accessible to all, and we want to turn the next generation of dreamers into the astronauts of today and tomorrow. We've all of us on this stage have just had the most extraordinary experience, and we'd love it if a number of you can have it too.
After Richard Branson and his crew of 5 from Virgin Galactic, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos blasted off to the edge of space on the 20th of July, along with 3 other members of the all-civilian crew on Blue Origin vessel. The suborbital trip was made possible by the New Shepard launch vehicle.
My expectations were high and they were dramatically exceeded. It felt so normal. It felt so almost like we were, as humans, evolved to be in that environment, which I know is impossible, but it felt so serene and peaceful, and the floating. It's actually much nicer than being in full one gravity.
Slipping into short break on the other side of World Today, we'll be talking about one of the biggest developments of 2021, that is, the fall of Kabul and return of the Taliban in Afghanistan. Stay tuned. Welcome back to World Today. Now, 2021 saw many military coups, attempts to topple governments. Mali, Guinea, Sudan all witnessed such events. But one of the biggest events of the year was the fall of Kabul. On the 15th of August, the civilian administration in Kabul was removed per force by the Taliban days ahead of the complete US troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. The fall of Kabul has thrown up many challenges for the international community. Many parts of the country have been thrown back into the dark ages. Women's rights, minority rights violated on numerous occasions, and the government is far from being an inclusive voice of the people. If the situation continues, far from being recognized as the official representatives of the people of Afghanistan, the Taliban will be dealing with the worst humanitarian crisis the country has ever seen. Funds are frozen and the world is trying to send aid to people of Afghanistan without according the Taliban an official position. Terrorism, instability, growing influence of Pakistan are concerns for the region and the world.
To those who carried out this attack, as well as anyone who wishes America harm, know this: we will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
One of the biggest problem areas for the world has been China's aggressive behavior and the realization during COVID that how much of the supply chains are controlled by Beijing. Therefore, 2 major blocs came together as a CounterChina Force. The Quad elevated its engagement from official to ministerial to summit level in September when the heads of government of US, Japan, Australia and India met in Washington, D.C. And on the same day, Australia, US and the UK announced a military alliance called the AUKUS, paving the way for a new force in the Indo-Pacific region to counter Chinese aggression and work on a resilient supply chain. After 16 years as Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel stepped down as a new centre-left-led coalition took the wheel of Europe's top economy under Olaf Scholz. Germany's outgoing Chancellor, Angela Merkel, received the highest ceremony for a civilian as she bid farewell. 67-year-old Merkel, Germany's first woman chancellor, retired from politics after 4 consecutive terms, the first post-war leader to step aside of her own accord. The Belarus-European border crisis is one of the biggest migrant crises and issues that the international community is grappling with. The This comes after Belarus was slapped with international restrictions following the 2020 Belarusian presidential elections, the 2020-2021 Belarusian protests, the Ryanair Flight 4978 incident and its sanctions, and the attempted forced repatriation of Olympic sprinter Kristina Simanouskaya from Tokyo, Japan. Around July, Belarusian autocratic leader Alexander Lukashenko threatened to flood the EU with human traffickers, drug smugglers, and armed migrants. Ever since then, border countries like Poland are faced with a migrant crisis consisting of an influx of several tens of thousands of immigrants, primarily from Iraqi Kurdistan, with smaller groups hailing from elsewhere in Asia and from parts of Africa. In another major move to corner China, some countries have decided to boycott the 2020 Beijing Winter Olympics as a mark of protest over human rights violations in the country.
We are standing here in front of the IOC building to boycott the Beijing Olympics 2022.
Mind you, this is not the first time that such violations have been recorded. But certainly, countries like the US, Australia and Britain have taken note of widespread allegations of Chinese atrocities against the Uyghur community and decided on a diplomatic boycott, not a full boycott, which would have been much more contentious, preventing athletes from competing. Relations are also strained over a crackdown on political freedom and pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong, and more recently concerns over tennis player Peng Shuai, who disappeared from public view after she accused a top Chinese government official of sexual assault. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for his opposition to racial discrimination in South Africa, died. He was 90. Tutu died in Cape Town on December 26th. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1997 and underwent surgery. Tutu was subsequently hospitalized several times to undergo treatment for infections and other ailments. I leave you with a roundup of all the freaky weather conditions, the impact of climate change that the world faced in the year 2021, hoping only that we will do whatever it takes for our future generations. Happy New Year.